Oh, you can bring me a bunch of green bananas, please. Yeah, lovely, thank you. Right, bye.
Okay. So, Louise, the screen is again on.
Yeah, sorry. It's after stopping recording, so I had to start it again.
Okay.
I'll just
Try. Okay.
I'll do it now.
Okay. But in the meantime, I explain. So we're quite limited in staff to try and find our to find a need. We get a mere 75,000 euros, which we where we pay our two half-time collaborators with. They're, as I want to underline that they're doing a tremendous job because they're doing far more than the half time they have to do, and all the rest of the board members, of which you could see there, is our volunteers. You will probably also have noticed that it originally existed of a group of handsome young men, which which are throughout the 10 years we tried to change to get some younger people in, to get some women in, and also to get some people from other origin in, to get, well, more representation of what our society really is about. A big problem we do have also with lots of our associations, which are often run by male persons over 60, which is not, well, quite representative for the community we do live in. Yes? Following next slide. How do we organize that? Yes. I put this in how we do it. Well, organize and communicate, I would say, downwards to our local councils. We have a website which is updated and gives lots of information. We try to be on social media as Facebook and LinkedIn. We send newsletters every now and then, which we reduced in size. We try to do digital meetings, and our staff collaborators figure as a kind of help desk if they know to find local councils, village councils can find them if there is any problem. We try to make some partnerships with local communities so that we can extend our help there, and if necessary, our collaborators visit on the spot, especially, for example, when new local village councils want to start. Upwards, we are represented, and I will show that in the next slide, in a number of organizations. We try to make annual and thematic reports where we gather all the information of our local villages. And that's, well, we, especially with the elections, we present memoranda and we try to reach the press. Yes, and you could indeed go to the following slide. You will see there that we have quite a number of contacts with all the governments on the different level. We are a member of the village policy of ESL. We try to be also a partner in lots of village organizations. We're part of the network of sustainable village. We try to be into the European rural concept. As you stated, we're member of ERCA and EPCA, which is the association which connects Flanders, Holland, and a part of Germany, and recently re-established, where Ben has been doing and his colleagues has done a big job. We try to be represented in the leader areas, the local area groups, and our village councillors are represented in 8 out of 15, and we try to collaborate in that rural pact on the higher level. Yes, following slide. Okay. Of course, if you would hear this story, you would say, well, it's a big success. In a way it is. I think we've tried to do with very limited means and personnel, try to put ourselves on the map of participation and village interested, but we still have a number of threats. The one is, and we try to find that, we do have quite limited grants, and it's difficult to get structural grants or subsidies. Within projects or in leaders, our participation is not always honorated, so we could not hire more personnel, and we would so our team, although they're doing a tremendous job, we would like to expand that and to double it even if we want to achieve our goals. Another problem is what we could call the democratic deficit. There is a gap between politician and civilians in that way that often politicians think of election time, and they think of periods of 4 years. And I don't know whether that's the case in the rest of Europe, but we lack a bit of long-term policy. And as I stated earlier, that city participation, which is quite new here in Belgium, lots of politicians are quite reluctant with that, and they see that not as a partner, but as a kind of threat, which we try. Moreover, and I think that's quite typical in Flanders, we have a kind of conservatism. There is a big fear of change. Things should remain as they are. On social level and on political level, and new things are being often seen as a threat, and that doesn't make things more easy. And moreover, and Agnes can certainly prove that too, there is a big difference in local governments to enhance village terms. There are villages where it works very well, and they even start themselves of organizing village councils, but there are some villages where they're very reluctant for that. And we try to change the minds also of the local politician by improving where they're partners, not their enemies. And that's a quite important thing. Good. Yes, next slide. What are our plans? We will try to increase the memberships in all provinces. They're not, well, most of the local village councils, the local village groups better, are member, but not all of them. We try also to increase that participation in local villages, and also remain an important partner into that Flemish policy. We'll be having a talk within a month or a couple of months with the cabinet of the minister who is responsible for rural development of our plans, and we try to become and be a partner also in that big European policy. And it is our and my intention, if things go out well, to be present in Scotland on the next European Rural Conference, and also the one which is organized then in what Ben talked about in Belgium, where we can to speak up for the voice of Flanders and the Flemish rural communities on a European level. So with that, I would like to conclude and just put in the picture. The presentation will be probably put somewhere, I suppose, on our website. Also, you could go to our website, which is www.dorpsbelangen.be, or you could try and find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or send us a mail. You will come across or come into contact with Agnes, which is with us now, or Martin, which is our other staff collaborator. I hope that with this presentation. I hope I didn't go too quickly with this presentation. I give you kind of overview what we've been trying to do over the last 15 years in Flanders, and I'm glad to answer any questions if they crop up. Thanks for your attention.
Well, that's great, William. I see that Rina is asking where we can share the presentation. Is that okay for you, William, if we do so? Oh, great.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
We'll put it on the website of the Flemish community, and we'll be glad if you would do it somewhere on the website of ERCA as well. Or you could send it to the participants. We don't have any problem. There are no secrets hidden in the presentation.
Okay. Vanessa, you have a question, and please others come up.
Yeah, I thought I would just start things off. That was absolutely fascinating, William. Really, really interesting. And what always interests me is the differences between countries, but also the similarities. Now, obviously, we're currently preparing for the European Rural Parliament, and we had a big meeting yesterday of both the ERP steering group people and the Scottish people talking about how we develop the process of thinking about what rural communities actually are doing and contributing. And one thing that always strikes me is that there are considerable lessons to be learned by comparing some basic things like the structure of our countries. Now, you talked about democratic deficit, and I talked about the very small population that we have where I live, in terms of density compared to where you live. And it seems to me that the level at which we have good representation from the local community perspective in decisions, policy, and the ability to act lies at the very heart of what we're all trying to achieve. Some countries seem to have done that really, really well. They seem to have got that right somehow for the rural villages. And the one I always cite is Norway. I think Norway is incredibly well organized for rural people. Really amazing. Scotland is incredibly badly organized. We've got one council, which is the size of Belgium. How can that be right? Democratic deficit is massive. I calculated once that Norway has 14 times more elected representatives representing them than Scotland does. 14 times. Now that makes a very big difference to what you can do. So one of the things I'm thinking is, with an eye to the ERP in October, is beginning to look at some of these comparators, the basis on which we compare our situations, therefore what we have to do and what we are able to do, is really important. And maybe ERCA could actually do a bit of research on this with its own members at some point, beginning to map some of that out, because I think it would be extremely interesting. But a fantastic presentation. Thank you, William.
Okay. Could I just, before we go to the next question, just comment quickly on that one? That is, well, for example, one of the problems in difference is that, or even similarities, that is, where does the money go? We don't have that rural thing, but when you talk about rural development and social cohesion, lots of money, and it's needed there, goes to towns and cities. Cities at this time, I think Ghent, Antwerp, Brussels, do have big problems where people living together, and lots of effort is being put in that. But as a result, rural communities are a bit forgotten in the whole of this, in all of the story, and I think that's quite comparable all over Europe. Just to state one point.
It is.
Okay. Next,
thanks.
Ben.
Thanks. Yeah. But for instance, I will later on. I would like to come back to the question for which the issue that Vanessa puts on the table here, because I'm also very interested in how do we organize ourselves on this local level. But Rina, you have also a question. Please come in.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you, Vanessa. That was very, very good notion. And I'd like to know more about these comparisons as well by each country. But you mentioned that there is a big difference in areas how the village teams are supported. Can you tell why? Is it because of their own attitude, the village team's own attitude, or the local government? And then I have 6 minutes to go, and then I have to go to the next meeting. I'm sorry.
Well, one thing is that we started from East Flanders, and there were a lot of, seemed to be, although it's quite densely populated, that lots of village councils popped up there, whereas in some of the provinces we simply can't spot them. There are no village councils yet. That movement from there is not organized in the same way. On the other hand, in West Flanders, it has been organized for a long time already, because the area is far more rural and they've pointed out the problems more early. But there a bit, some of them are looking for a second breath. That's a bit of the, if that answers your question, Rina. What we tried though is, we have two local representatives from Limburg, and there we use the system of the oil spot, which is, we started around a certain village. There were 5 or 6, and now more and more village councils all over Limburg are popping up, and we try to, once they start, we try to help them and to improve them. Okay.
Can I say a few words also?
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
of course.
Yes. I think it would be interesting to think when in the years of 2000, when the councils arised by village appraisals, Dorpinzicht, then it were the local governments who are looking for, we want to reach the people, we want to make, to know their problems. And so now there's more a feeling of the civils who want to come up for themselves. And a lot of councils arise because some civils come together and they pop up. And some years ago, Martin did a searching onderzoek.
Survey.
Survey.
Yes.
And a bit more than half of the councils arise because of problems in the villages. So that was start because some things, big apartments or bigger problems, or the center of the village was not safe for mobility and so on.
Yeah.
Now there's an atmosphere that more and more of the local governments, they want to hear the voice of the citizens, and they want to because the cities get bigger by fusions, and there's also an atmosphere of the right to challenge, and more civils want to give the problems. Sorry, my English is not so good today.
No, we understand it. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Agnes.
Okay.
Thanks. William, there was also a question from Miriam. How could you elaborate a little bit more? She mentioned the difficulty of finding volunteers. That was one thing, and also finding young people to be involved. Could you say how do you solve this?
Well, with lots of difficulty. When we visited Ben's area, a little village which was called America, and we did a 2-day visit, and it was very helpful with us, and could say, well, just going across the border already is already very interesting. Well, at that time we saw that organizations of volunteers in Holland, and as I now stated in Ireland, is completely different from Belgium, from Flanders and Belgians. Flanders and Flemish people tend to think of themselves that they're very social and very into volunteering. Well, I think on a European level, they're not. When I cross the border, I see it in lots of countries as a kind of evidence that people do volunteer work and reach out. We don't have that evidence. There are a big number of people, I would certainly not deny that, a number of people who are into associations, who are into sports events, who are doing community work like that. But all of those associations, we get signals, find it difficulty of finding new people, young people and new people. It is as if Flemish people, and Agnes contradict me, don't want to engage into long-term projects anymore. What you could make them warm for, I would say, that is for a short-time project to just put into in a limited time on a limited thing. Then you would find people, but as a kind of organized long-term volunteering, there are a number of organizations, but they all suffer the same problem as finding young people. And we try to, but I don't have a magic stick at this moment or a magic solution to improve that. Yeah.
Yes, I think that a lot of civils see participation as a kind of recreation and not being beleidszaken, hoe zeg je? Government
policy. Yes,
Yeah,
policy.
yeah. Okay.
We
Okay, great.
don't have that degree of participation also, and it seems to be perhaps it has to do with the fact that on the whole, and especially in Flanders, and you must say that lots of people are hard workers, and they do take lots of time on their job, and jobs are very demanding, also for young people. They have sometimes also to struggle hard to get a living and to get a house, and they don't seem, and a family, to have enough time or make time to do that volunteer work. That might be one of the explanations, but I'm not a sociologist. So anyhow, it's a difficult question.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Wendy, you had also a question about this learning community. Perhaps you can put this question forward.
Yes. I was really intrigued about the learning community you make for civil servants, because I find in our region, and I also work at the local university, so we get a lot of questions from civil servants saying, I want to co-create with citizens and I don't know how, and you see them struggling within their own organizations. So I was agreed, how does that work, the learning community for civil servants, and what do you think it brings by it being organized by you?
Agnes is the perfect person to answer that, because she's responsible for that. I'll help you out, Agnes. How do you organize that, and how does that work? Could you explain that a bit?
Well, as we are with only 2 half times to do these things, so it's not our specialty. So there are other organizations like Landelijke Gilden, who have staff who is very specialized in this. But we bring all the groups together to learn from each other. So they tell about their good practices. They tell each other about the problems they can solve or they cannot solve, and they ask for solutions. And we also have some inspiring guides that we write ourselves with all the things we mark on our paths. But we see that other organizations, they have staff that is talking, that is having big projects, sometimes of about 2 years or 2 years and a half within leader, or there are other subsidies, and they spend a lot of time just by asking to all the people, are you glad to live in your village? How is it? What are the needs? What are the good things, and how do you want to have the future of your village? How do you see it in within 20 years, within 40 years? How can we manage to create a path that we can get there?
Yeah, so it's sort
Okay,
of like intervision.
Yeah.
And it's asking people about the future, and actually then having civil servants actually do a kind of survey in that way, isn't it? The last
Yes,
question you said, because civil servants ask about the future in your village.
yes.
Is that what you ask civil servants then especially to do, or?
Yes, we have. There are methodics like you dream, you tell all your dreams to the other. So there are no limits. You can think what you want, and then you are looking what can be realized and what not. What can be realized very quickly, the quick wins. What is for within 10 years, within 20 years. And also we found it very important that the villages have access to the important numbers and facts of their village. So online you have a lot of provincial numbers or numbers of the country, and because sometimes citizens also can be wrong and think my problem is a problem of every citizen here in the village, and that can be countered by some numbers. But also looking to the numbers give you inspiration. At a certain theme, a certain object, a certain thing in your city is not present and could be useful.
Yeah. Let me put a question for other people. For instance, Deborah, how is that in England? Are civil servants, are they a target group for you, or are you only aimed at local communities and the civilians there?
I think the way ERCA works is that we're a national body and we support our member organisations. Those member organisations work directly with the rural communities and they help them to set up projects. So they work directly with the local groups and help them. And then all their problems and issues, they feed back to us. And we have links into DAFRA, into our government department, and that is through the civil servants. So as a national organisation, we work quite closely with civil servants to bring the messages back from rural communities. So it doesn't always work brilliantly, but there is a structure there to try to help it work. So we do have a way of feeding right the way through.
Ralph, perhaps could you tell a little bit, because what I know is that in the Netherlands and especially also in Limburg, we had some kind of a learning community for civil servants. Is that still there?
Well, there are. It is there in a way, but not as it used to be. But there are some new ideas to re-establish it. We have something called an annual gathering of people who work in communities. So they are not volunteering in communities or are from the communities, but they work for the communities, like welfare workers or civil servants who are actually active in the communities. And that's once a year. And the spin-off of that gathering, where 500 people meet, it's called Spil in de Wijk. One of the spin-offs is now that they want to establish some kind of a network for these mostly civil servants, mostly the people from the local governments, local municipalities, who are working the most with the villages together. So, and they want to bring them together again, because for like till a year or 5-6 ago, it was there, but then, well, the main people who pulled, who were really working on that network, they went to the background, and then it fell apart slowly. And now we want to try to reestablish it. But for us as a village association, it's a little bit difficult, because our members are those village councils where William talked about. So we are working with them, but we're not working for them. So we are not the ones who are organizing it, but we want to take part in it as one of the organizations who support this network.
And to be clear, local government, so the municipalities can also be a member of your organization, isn't it?
They can be a member, but we call it an agenda member, so they have no voting rights, but they can be the member who supports the association, who is actually involved and who gets all the information. Yeah.
Okay, William, back to you.
I want to add something which makes things a bit more complicated also, and that is as to those civil servants. We do have quite a big problem here in Flanders. One, of finding them, and two, of keeping them. They have lots of civil servants who hop from one job to the other because think of themselves, their job has become highly complicated over the last years, far more difficult than it was 20, 30 years ago. And lots of them find from themselves they're underpaid and often go for a better job in the industry. What makes it difficult also for our organization and for local villages and for local communities to establish a policy on participation. Moreover, there's a second problem, that is that local governments often underestimate the job of a participative or a civil servant of participation. It is very often and very quickly, if you have a number of local village councils, quite of a full-time job, and they add it to somebody's basket, who is then overworked and quits with it. To give an idea of my own local community, we've had 3 participative civil servants over the last 6 years. They all quit their job because once they understand the needs of the local villagers and then want to transpose that to that local government, but there they end up running themselves against the wall as such. Yeah. And that makes the whole of the organization even more complicated. And some have really given up, and some local councils are really wanting to improve it, because there is a Flemish decree who obliges local communities to do some kind of degree of participation into their policy.
Well, of course, local governments are struggling with a lot of problems, like you said. But what I think what is interesting is whether we as organizations think about our connection to this local government. For instance, what I think is very interesting, I think every year you have this well done prize.
Yeah.
But it is on the one hand for the volunteers, the local council, but on the other hand also for this local governments, the community, the municipalities. Why is that? What's your strategy about it? Why do you do this for the local government? Because I think the strategy is we should be in these local governments. We should also make clear that it is important that we are there and that these local councils are there. So you have on the one hand, your target group is the village councils, and the one hand, very clear, your target groups are also these local governments and municipalities.
Because we just do it because of the lack of correct mindset with number of local authorities, and we try to set an example. And if we combine that, for example, when a local government gets a prize like that, they're very proud of that. And the mayor comes to that, and it often radiates in a way that we can show, look, if a local government invests in participation, it can work. And it really helps also. Local village councils cannot work if the local government rejects them or ignores them. And that's the whole of the point. We did have a lot of signals of village councils that were simply ignored by the local government. And that's something we want to break and to change the attitude there, that they're not against them, but that village councils are partners of that local government in establishing a local rural policy. That's the idea behind it.
Yeah, right. Just also, and it's a question that could follow up on this, and coming back to the question that Vanessa put on the podium. How are our members, and then really at the local level, how are they organized? But you use the term of village councils, William. We know that very much also in the Netherlands. So a lot of villages have a village council, which is not a formal organization, but an organization of volunteers. What I know is that, for instance, in England, as I understand, you have these kind of parish councils. Is that the same? And how is that in Scotland, or how is that in Ireland? Are there these village councils? Is that a way in which local people organize themselves, and is that a voice for these local people? Deborah.
Yeah, parish councils are actually local authorities. They're the lowest tier of the local authority. But having said that, they are volunteers, so they're elected. They're elected by their community to serve the community, and they deal with things like local planning applications and housing and the playing fields. So that's the sort of things that the parish council actually do, but they don't have a huge amount of power in bigger decisions. They can represent the community, and they have a few powers, and they can support their local village halls and community buildings, but they don't have any powers to decide laws about, I don't know, how our bins will be emptied at that sort of level. So they are the lowest level of the local authorities, but it's probably different in Scotland again.
How are people in Scotland organized, Vanessa, on this local level? So villages, for instance.
I'll make a couple of comments, and Fiona might want to jump in with this as well. I mean, we are similar to England, but we have community councils, which are supposed to be the lowest tier of local government, but actually they are incredibly weak. I mean, they have no powers, they have no money, they can't do anything, frankly. So they're almost useless, but they're almost worse than useless, because they are an excuse that is used by the local authority all the time. Oh, we've consulted the community council. Well, most people don't interact with their community councils. People don't want to be on community councils because they have no power, they can't do very much. So they're very weak institutions. And in some ways, I feel at times we're almost better without them. But, that's just my personal view. I have been a community councillor for many years as well. I think...
Are those people elected? Are they elected?
Yes, technically, but in reality not, because not many people want to stand. So there's not that many proper elections that take place. They do sometimes. Sometimes they do.
And get they support or means, or and have they professionals to help them?
Nothing at all. Absolutely nothing. And also, they get something like, ours used to get something like £400 a year, which is not enough even to pay for a secretary. I mean, it's appalling. It's a really bad system.
Okay.
But the point I wanted to make before Fiona speaks was, I think it's really important that we distinguish between the official system, if you like, administrative system, and the civil society system.
Yeah.
Because as we know, civil society jumps in when there's a gap. That's what we're all about. The question is, where are the gaps and how should these be addressed? And I will come back very briefly to Norway, because I'm so impressed by Norway in that sense. You know, in their rural areas, which are as sparse or more so than Scotland, they will have the lowest level of local government in a community of, say, 500 people. And I've visited such places. There are many, many, many of them. They have all the powers that our local authority has at this huge regional level. They have powers over planning, they have powers over local schools, over everything, local roads. They have all the money, all the taxation comes into them, you know, incredibly, income tax and everything flows into them. They then give some of that back to the national level, but not that much. So they've got money, they have the ability to with hydropower, to either own it directly and run it as a going concern, or to have a public-private partnership, or to tax it. You know, they can tax anything they want. They tax dogs. They, you know, I mean, that's the level of local control that we should all be aspiring to. And we couldn't be further away from it in Scotland. So we've had to invent community development trusts, you know, community land trusts, you know, loads of civil society kind of fill-in type structures. They're not everywhere, they're only in some places, and we don't have that kind of system which is everywhere available to every community.
Yeah.
Fiona, sorry, I've occupied too much time there.
No, not at all, Vanessa, and you certainly have an understanding of this both from a Scottish and a European perspective, so I'm glad you were able to speak to that. I think I would just like to say, and put in context, obviously Scotland, along with the rest of Europe, and somebody mentioned earlier in today's meeting that, you know, rural has been kind of left behind and is not listened to. And it's undoubted that we have a demographic deficit of the younger working people across our rural and island places. And yet it is our rural and island places which are, you know, taking care of the food production, oftentimes the renewable energy, fresh water, and all of those things. And I think, just building on what Vanessa has just said, that in the absence of more formal structures, and, you know, you asked, Ben, whether the sort of local councils and so on, or the community councils or the parish councils were elected. Well, you do, you know, without wishing to be controversial, you have to look at who stands to be elected. And Scotland has a huge problem, and it is huge, of incoming people retiring from other parts of the UK, where the economic situation is different. Now, if those retirees come in, people will say, well, they bring wealth. Wealth is no good if you don't have a primary school and you don't have a health clinic that can have a midwife or anything like that, just because somebody's has moved into the community with money in the bank account. So this is a really critical issue for governments to address the demographic change. You may find that in some areas your population is increasing, but who is it increasing with? And those are also the same people who have got the time, because they are retired, to stand for parish councils or community councils. Yeah. So I think in their absence, and again, building on what Vanessa was saying in terms of what's almost filled the void, you might say, young people do not want to be on a community council with people who are retired and, you know, and as Vanessa said, they've got no teeth, they've got no budgets, they've got nothing. So these development trusts, whether they're land ownership or whether they are owning some other community resource, if you like, is often filled with those who have the energy and the real local rooted understanding of place. And I think it's a very mixed picture. So it doesn't fit with any of the formal frameworks you've been talking about. But in each community, if you can shed a light of recognition of what a younger demographic, a more rooted demographic are able to deliver on, then that becomes infectious and catching. And other places go, well, if they can do it, we can do it. And we can spread, you know, speak to many examples of that. And of course, you know, people like our young farmers, you know, producing our food, they are very rooted, and I'm sure that's the same across the whole of rural Europe.
Yeah.
And, you know, they are the ones producing our food, but they also have a very strong sense of community and rootedness.
Yeah.
And I think we could look to them as well for examples of how we move forward. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much. I think you made some very important points, and for me, but the time is now short. But it would be nice, because I think also this issue is an issue for all of us. How do we organize bottom up, so that not only the formal but also this civil society is organized and has a voice and is clear. That they have some influence about their own future. I think that's a very principal thing for ERCA. And what we see is that it is everywhere and on another way organized. But if we could bring Norway to everyone, just to quote Vanessa, it would be a really jump forward, I think, to make rural people bring more power to the civil society, and I'm very interested in these issues, and what could ERCA also do in the learning process for that. For now, also looking at the time, is there one urgent question for William still there? If not, then I would like to thank him very, very, very much. I think William. It was great to hear, and I will also underline that even if your organization is not so old in history, but I think you do a tremendous job as looking at where you are now and still going strong forward, and that was good to hear from you. So thanks very much. Then I would like to look around for some last question. If someone has something to mention there, some people I didn't hear, Stefania or Meline, we didn't hear you yet. Is there something that you think, or Annelies, is there an issue that you want to bring forward? Not yet, no. Well then, Vanessa, do you have some closing remarks or?
Okay, I'm still here. I didn't expect I would be.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
Great that I am. Yeah, well, a couple of things actually, but I'll say again, William, I said it before, it was a very, very inspirational presentation. I think it stimulated a lot of, good thinking. And I think we now have to keep that going up until October, when you all join us, hopefully in Scotland, for the European Rural Parliament. In fact, you absolutely have to join us. There's no two ways about that. Okay. And, I think through these ERCA cafes, we can go on up until October exploring some of these key issues, which will help us also in planning, the discussions at the ERP. So that's really important. Ben will probably come back in a second to tell you when the next cafe is and all the rest of it. One thing just to remind everybody is that on Monday, it is the ERCA General Assembly, and that will be preceded by a webinar, which should be hopefully very interesting to you all, about the Rural Pact and what's going on with that. And it's the General Assembly is the opportunity that we will have to come together and shape a little bit about where ERCA is moving to in the future. So I hope to see you all there as well. But no, it was a fantastic discussion. I think these are really good events. I like the fact that it's free for all of our members to have a good chat and get to know each other, because that doesn't happen on normal webinars. And yeah, that's brilliant. And thank you, Ben, and your team for organising it.
Well, thanks. William, you raised your hand.
I want to add, yes, that, well, the fact that we are where we are is of course, and that goes, I think, for all of you, a result of teamwork. We have two very devoted staff collaborated, and also, I think, a devoted team of our board who in each province, we spread out over the whole province, try to catch up and doing their best with an age difference. One of his is over his 80s, but he's still as active as he can. We try to let that hold on, and the fact that we are what we are is in fact the result of a well cooperating and team with big voluntary to see the needs of that. I just want that, and thank you all for being there as well, Ben.
Okay. Thanks again, William. Very nice. Just to close, we will have a short report on this, and we will also publish the presentation from William. I think it will be on the website. Please also be invited for the next moments that we will be together. Vanessa mentioned already the webinar we will have on the Rural Pact coming Monday. But after that, on May 6th, there will be an interesting web event on Futural. Futural is a really great, big European project, and it is now in a very fruitful stage. So there is a lot to share about the first results of Futural, which is about finding new solutions for rural areas and innovative solutions, and there's a lot to learn for that. So you will be invited, or I think the invitation will be shortly in your email box for May 6th. Then on June 27, our Northern Irish member will be here to tell you more about healthcare in rural areas. So that's also a web event. And then the next ERCA Café is after the holidays. And then Finland will be our host to tell about the village association. So it is, I think, a good thing because this is, on the one hand, really sharing the knowledge that we all collective have, but it is also, like Vanessa already stated, discussing about the real problems and the issues that we're dealing with and the solutions that we all find. So that's great to keep this going on. And so thanks very much. Have a nice weekend. Thanks to Louise again for your assistance, and Wendy, and we will come back to you. Bye-bye.